had another example of a gal that we got approved for the income qualified program who's been going through cancer treatment and only had zonal heating baseboard heaters in her house and really couldn't afford to heat it for her and her daughter, and we got her approved and she's getting bids for a ductless heat pump, which she wouldn't have been able to afford without this program. So it's just really awesome to see the life-changing aspects for some of these people that really need it in their life.
Welcome to episode 3 of Lewis County PUD's podcast, the PUDcast. Today, for Public Power Week, which is when we are recording this, I have the Energy Services Department. And guys, welcome, first of all. Thank you for joining us. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction and then dive into what is our Energy Services Department and what do you guys do? Because I think a lot of people are like, Energy Services. I don't really know what that means. So today we get to talk about it. And then instead of just like a Facebook post or something where I'm like, hey, call our Energy Services Department, people can really hear some of the deep down details of what you guys do. So, first of all, we'll go around the room. Introduce yourself, give me your name and title.
I'm Jalen. I'm the Energy Services Coordinator.
My name is Rainey. I am the Energy Services Advisor.
My name is Kenzie, and I'm an Energy Services Specialist.
My name's Logan, and I am also an Energy Services Specialist.
First of all, what is Energy Services? How would you describe it to someone who doesn't know what your department does? Jalen, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think the answer to that changes every single year. Energy services and energy efficiency is ever evolving, changing all the time, especially in Washington State. But when we traditionally think of energy services, what we've offered for, I think like 40 years is free energy audits. We will come out to your house and assess all sorts of different things. We offer rebates and incentives for energy efficiency projects, which would be windows, insulation, HVAC upgrades, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of traditionally what you think of with energy services departments. It's really evolved over the years. Like I said, every single year, there's new programs that we're dealing with. There's new legislation. Washington State, of course, is the leader in energy efficiency and clean energy and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So that really alters what we do in our department. It directly affects us because we're involved in all those programs, all the different legislative stuff that comes out, helping our customers, or we have compliance ourselves. So that's a big, big part of what we do now, too, that a lot of people don't see or realize.
When you say compliance, that stuff that you have to do for state regulations, there's a lot of things that we have to comply with. Is that right?
Correct. There's all sorts of different ones. I mean, some of the main ones, the one that's been around for quite a while is the Energy Independence Act, or EIA. That's really what requires that we have these programs. We're required to set and achieve certain conservation. I think specifically it says all feasible, reliable, and cost-effective conservation. So we complete a conservation potential assessment every 2 years to figure out what is our conservation potential, and then we have to meet that target every 2 years. We are mandated to have these programs, and that's just one piece of the puzzle. I mean, another thing that we're involved in is clean buildings law. That affects a lot of our customers, and we're helping them with compliance, sending them consumption data so they can see if they comply with the law, all sorts of different things like that.
When you guys are talking about all of those different things, one of the main ways that it touches the community is it seems like it helps with conserving energy. Is that something that you would say is one of the biggest roles of your department?
Definitely, yeah. Conserving energy is top of the list, and what comes along with that almost always is making your home or business more comfortable. And what we mean by that is a lot of these programs help reduce air leakage in your home, add insulation, your floors feel warmer, you can hold heat in your home better. So it's not just energy savings, of course, and that's great. It helps you lower your bills as a customer. It helps us reduce our load that we have, but it's also making your home or business more comfortable to live in.
Let's hand it over to Rainey here. And Rainey, can you talk about all of the different programs that you guys do provide?
So we have our standard incentives, just regular rebates for pretty much anything, HVAC, heat pumps, ductless heat pumps. We have insulation rebates, window rebates, heat pump water heaters. It feels like the possibilities are kind of endless. And then we have our grant program, which is an income qualified program that helps with window replacement. It helps with adding insulation, ductless heat pumps, lots of different things under that program. And then we have our net metering program, which is for customers that have solar panels on their home, helps helping them get the net metering part set up where they can feed energy back into our grid and save it in the bank on their account. And that lives in our department as well.
Wow. So I tend to forget about that one, to be honest. With all of the other things that you guys do, that's one that I lose sight of a lot. But I assume that that's becoming more and more popular. Would you say that you're having more people over the last few years ask you about that one since solar seems to be getting more popular?
I do think that it is more popular. It definitely comes in waves in our department. It seems like everybody does the same projects all at the same time, but it is something that has become more popular in our county.
So some of the other services you mentioned, there's rebates for all sorts of different things. It seems like another one that people are looking more towards more recently are the ductless heat pumps. What do we offer for people who are looking into getting a ductless heat pump into their house?
So our standard rebate is $800. There's some requirements for what you have existing. You would need to have either an electric furnace or like cadet zonal heating, space heaters. If you have a heat pump existing already, then you're not eligible for an incentive. Or we have our income qualified program, which we pay up to $5,000 for a ductless heat pump to be installed in the customer's home. The process for that is a little more lengthy. There's an application process, an income verification process, but it's worth kind of jumping through the hoops for. And it's the same requirements, either an electric furnace, cadet space heaters, baseboard heaters to be eligible.
So with some of those things, I think people kind of understand heat pumps, ductless heat pumps, how that might make their house more efficient. But how do windows and insulation come into play with that? And we can hand it off to whoever wants to take this answer, but how does windows and insulation help people reduce energy? Logan, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
When you're making your windows more efficient for the insulation values and adding insulation to the home, it makes it a little more airtight, so you're not having as much air leakage, which really helps either hold your heat in or hold your cool in, depending on the time of year. If you've ever lived in one of those older houses that has the single pane wood windows or the metal windows, they can get drafty in the wintertime when the weather's nasty. And upgrading to vinyl windows really helps that draftiness, the insulation values better, so it holds the temperature that you're looking to have in your home better that way. And with holding that temperature better, you're going to use less energy. And in turn, your bill will be lower because you're not having to run your heat pump as much or your heaters as much, and you're just not using as much.
When we're talking about insulation, I think a lot of people understand that heat rises, but it also seems like that's not the only thing you guys check, and we'll get into more of energy audits later, but there's an importance for insulation all throughout the house, not just in the attics, which is kind of what I always assumed. Is that the case? Do you guys look for insulation below, walls, all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. We look at the walls, the floors, the home as a system. Really, if you've got insulation in your ceiling and stuff, the warm air, the cold air is going to move to the path of least resistance, I guess you would say. You know, most of your ceiling's insulated, your walls are insulated, but you got a crawl space access that isn't insulated. You know, all that heat that you're trying to hold in your home in the wintertime is kind of going to go to that space, gravitate to that area, and get released a lot quicker through that space.
So when we're talking again back to the programs that you guys provide, can anybody apply for all of these programs? You mentioned that there's income qualified ones, but there's rebates for everybody, right? As long as you mentioned something about the type of heat they already have. Is that something that comes into play?
I think that really anybody can apply. If your home is electrically heated, then you're eligible for an incentive. It really just takes an energy audit as far as like insulation and windows go to determine if your home is actually eligible, but anyone can get a rebate if their home is eligible.
All right, so that seems like a good time for us to get into the energy audits. And then after that, we'll talk about how some of these programs are funded and where we get some of the help to provide some of these different rebates and features for people. But let's talk a little bit about the energy audit. Kinsey, what is an energy audit in general? And then we'll talk about some of the specific things that you guys look for.
Sure. Well, we would come out and just go over, like Logan had said, the home as a system, make sure that your windows are working with your insulation, which is working with your heat pump, and that everything is just coexisting well, and come out to the house, take a look, see what you could improve, upgrade to just make the home as a system more efficient overall. When we do an audit, we do a lot of background work before we even come out to your home to kind of break it down. A customer might call and they might see one of our ads and say, hey, I want an audit. I want to just see what I can do to make upgrades. I don't know what windows I have. I don't know what insulation I have. What can you do for me? So we'll get them on the schedule. And before we even go out to the home, I will look and see if there's an old Zillow listing or look and see if there's any pictures online and kind of get an idea of what I'm going into before and just do a lot of background work. And then once I get out there, I have an idea of, okay, from the old Zillow listing, it looks like they might have new vinyl windows, but I'm not sure because the pictures aren't that great. But then when we get out to the home, depending on the home, we typically start inside. The inside portion of the audit only takes 25, maybe 30 minutes sometimes. And sometimes the customer's gotta get going somewhere. So we can just get the inside portion done and then we can do everything from the outside. It takes a little bit longer measuring windows if they're eligible. Typically we start inside with the insulation because we'll need to get into an attic space, either in a crawl space kind of area. And then we'll look at what's existing. We'll take some measurements, measure any upstairs windows from the inside if they're eligible, since we can't get to those ones from the outside, and then look at existing heating systems, look and see if they have just a furnace, if it's working. If they have a heat pump, we can still look at the indoor unit and see if it's, hey, when's the last time you changed your filter? Because some people forget that you have to change that filter in your furnace, and that alone can make a difference at how your system is running. And then we'll take a look at the windows, see if the windows are eligible. Anything that's wood pane or double pane metal is going to be eligible for incentive to upgrade. If they are eligible, we'll measure everything and let the customer know what they are eligible for. And then if they have a crawl space, we'll get on a suit and crawl underneath the home and see if their ductwork is sufficient and if it's not attached properly. And maybe that's why, their bills are high. Or we can also, while we're inside, go around and check all of the vents and make sure there's adequate airflow coming through the vents. If there's not, then that gives us an idea of, hey, the left side of the house isn't being heated. Maybe the ductwork on the left side isn't properly attached. So we'll crawl underneath and check out the ductwork if necessary. See how the insulation is underneath of the home, if there is insulation. It may be older and maybe there's been some damage and we just need to have somebody come out and tie it back up. Maybe you have adequate insulation, but it's kind of hanging down and it just needs some love. Some of the older houses just need a little bit of love.
I just wanted to also go into maybe the various reasons why we might come out and do an energy audit to begin with. Some people, I think, don't understand, when would they call a utility and request an energy audit? So kind of like what Kenzie touched on, we might come out for rebate purposes to try and figure out what you're eligible for. But we'll also just come out if you're concerned about your bills with the PUD. Maybe they've gone up over the last couple of years or the last year, or maybe you're concerned about them in general. They haven't gone up, but they've always been high, and you want ideas as to how to lower them. We will come out, take a look at all your equipment, assess what all is consuming energy at your house, and walk you through that process and help you trying to figure out how to lower your bills. And also, we'll just come out and do an energy audit just because. If you're just interested in knowing how much insulation do I have in my attic, what does my ductwork look like underneath my house? Most people don't want to go crawl around in their crawl space looking at their ductwork, and we're willing to do that. You don't have to have a specific reason that you want the energy audit. You're just interested in figuring out how efficient your home is, and we'll come out and do that. It's free. There are no caveats to it. We're not trying to sell you anything. So it's a really awesome service that we offer.
We also have a blower door we can set up for people. You section off the home and look for air leakage, and we can go around with a thermal camera and see, are you leaking around your windows? Maybe you need to caulk them off some more, or fix the weather stripping around your doors, or the insulation around your lighting fixtures in your attic needs to be fixed, and you're having air escape through there, which can really add up quickly, all those little things.
One thing that being around your guys' department, sometimes I'll hear you talk about the emergency setting is on a heat pump. It seems like that can be something that spikes bills a lot. And because it's something that I hear commonly, I assume that it happens pretty frequently, and some people might not even know to check that out. So what makes that happen, and what are the impacts that you see from that? Because it seems like sometimes that really spikes people's bills.
Yeah, so emergency heat on a heat pump is when your outdoor unit isn't functioning and you're just running the resistance heat, which is basically just like using a furnace versus your heat pump. So you're using about 3 times the amount of energy you would be if your heat pump was functioning regularly. And sometimes the setting gets changed to run on emergency heat, and then sometimes it's because the outdoor unit has failed, which we find, people all of a sudden partway through the winter, the bill really spikes up. We come out and do an audit and they don't realize that their exterior unit for their HVAC system isn't functioning anymore. So that really tends to run people's bill up when you start running on resistance heat instead. And, if you've got kids in the house, sometimes they like messing with the thermostat and they may have just got it on the wrong setting. But a lot of the time when people's bills spike up and they haven't even messed with their thermostat or anything, it's a determining factor that your exterior units quit functioning. You probably need an HVAC company to come out and take a look at things.
Is there a way that people can maybe check on that, or is there any indicators that may have happened before them just seeing their energy bill and being like, what happened? I need to call the PUD and see what happened. Is there something like they notice a day where they're like, hey, something seems off?
It's kind of difficult on a day-to-day basis. It might be challenging. I mean, the tip that I would say is if you have a heat pump, periodically make sure your outdoor unit is kicking on in the wintertime. It should be kicking on. There are a few times that it doesn't purposefully, and it doesn't mean anything's wrong with it. If it's really, really cold out, say it's freezing temperatures, a lot of times it will switch over to your backup heat, emergency heat. That's just the way heat pumps work. They're more efficient that way. So in those instances, it might not come on. Or if you turn your temperature down a couple degrees at night and kick it up in the morning, sometimes it'll kick on your backup furnace because it needs to heat the home quickly. So there are a couple times where it won't be on the outdoor unit, but most often it should be running. So just periodically check your outdoor unit. Make sure it's coming on. You can check your thermostat. Your thermostat will say what it's running on. It might say auxiliary heat. Basically means the same thing as emergency heat. It means that your furnace is what's heating your house. What Logan said is completely true, and I feel like it's the biggest culprit for the people that call us with high bill complaints. They say nothing's changed. Our bill has gone up and we have changed absolutely nothing. Well, what they don't realize is they're still getting heat. Their furnace is heating their house, but it's heating it with the furnace, not the heat pump.
We've been talking mostly, I believe, about residential rebates and stuff like that, but that's not all that we help out, right? There's options for businesses and nonprofits. So what are some of the things that you look at for them? And is that the same process for a business and a nonprofit, or is it a little bit different?
Yeah, you're completely correct, Daniel. We do have incentives and rebates for commercial businesses and industrial as well. Commercial businesses are very similar to residential. We're looking at windows, insulation, HVAC upgrades. The one thing in addition to that we don't do at residential is lighting. We do a lot of commercial lighting and industrial lighting. It's one thing that I kind of wish our community knew more about. There's still a lot of the old T8, T12 fluorescent lights in these commercial buildings that they could make a big difference if they upgraded their lighting, and we do a lot of it. Industrial programs are a little bit different. A lot of what we're doing with them is upgrading big pumps, aerators, motors. It's less typical energy efficiency projects.
One of the first projects that I went out and watched your guys' department work on was something it was a Grange, so a nonprofit organization. What are some of the things that you guys do to help organizations like that? And is there added benefits, since they're a nonprofit, maybe are the rebates the same, or are you guys able to help out a little bit more?
They are eligible for the same rebates as commercial businesses, but we've really been fortunate to have the TransAlta grant funding available. We've had that since 2017, and a certain amount of that funding has been allotted to nonprofits and schools. So we've done a lot of those projects. I think in the past 2 years, we've done 5 or 6 Granges that we've helped, and 3 or 4 food banks that we've been able to help, fully paying for ductless heat pumps. Some of them also did insulation, just making massive changes that these businesses would otherwise really never be able to do. Nonprofits typically aren't able to spend $15,000 on a new multi-zone ductless heat pump. So we've been very, very fortunate to have that grant funding to help those nonprofits.
And that's another thing I think we should touch on a little bit. How are all of these projects funded in general? So you mentioned the TransAlta grants. That's been a huge one. Rainey, can you walk us through a little bit about where some of this funding comes from? And you can talk more about the TransAlta grants too, and how we've been able to use that, but also we're not going to be able to use that for too much longer, right?
So we have the grant, which funds our income qualified program. We have about a year, hopefully a year of that left, if we can make it that long. And then we have EEI money, which stands for Energy Efficiency Incentive. And that money comes from BPA, Bonneville. And it's just a part of the budget that's allotted to us. It comes from the utility as a ratepayer to Bonneville. It's basically like a refund back to us that we pass on to our customers. I mean, it's a refund back to all of our customers that BPA gives us money to save energy for us, for them, and for our customers.
We get most of our power from the BPA. So I guess in that way it is coming from our ratepayers because they pay us for the power that we're paying the BPA for. But this isn't something like this is coming directly from our ratepayers.
No. Yeah, regardless of what our ratepayers paid, that money would be coming from Bonneville.
Now that we've talked about what type of different programs we do, all of the different services we provide, but we're not actually the ones putting in new insulation. We don't have PUD employees who go out and do the work. So I really like this side of it too. We're not just helping out customers, but we're also adding some business into the area as well. So Kinsey, can you talk about maybe some of the different contractors that work with us to provide some of these services?
Sure, yeah. So over the years, we've compiled a list of contractors. And with our income qualified program, these contractors that are on our list know that they're going to pay out all the money to make sure this job gets done, and they don't get paid until the job is completed and done the correct way. So that way we know our customers are getting quality work done at a very affordable rate because we are paying the contractors after, and then if there's any out of pocket for the customer, they pay that as well. But this list of contractors that we've compiled, we have people added to it somewhat frequently. We'll have, new contractors in the area that want to join the list and want to help out the community that they live in, which is awesome. The list is ever growing. We've got about 6 or 7 window contractors, 4 insulation contractors, and 15 to 20 HVAC contractors that are willing to help out our community. And it's just awesome. And they get their names out there. They're all vetted. They do a great job. And we do go out after they install the insulation or install the windows, install the heat pumps, and we check it and we inspect it and make sure that the job was done properly before the incentives get paid. So that way the customer's getting a quality job done and they know that their insulation is going to function properly or their heat pump is going to be set up properly and there's not any issues with it.
Well, I think that kind of segues nicely into, as you mentioned, the businesses and the contractors are doing this because they want to help out the customers that they're serving. I'm not sure how businesses normally always run, where they get paid before, during, or after a project. But as you mentioned, for the income qualified program that we have, they don't get paid until after the work's done. And so that might be different from how their normal practice is. So really the fact that they're working with us on that is a service to the community. You guys were all born and raised here in Lewis County too. So since it's especially Public Power Week, while we are recording this, I would like to talk about how cool it is that you guys get to have a job where you're serving the community that you're not only a part of now, but have been a part of for your entire lives. Brainy, we'll start with you.
I don't want to speak for all of us, but I do think that we all feel very similar. We're so proud of the work that we do, and we're so happy to be able to help the people that reach out to us. We're not only reducing consumption for the customer, we're making their home more comfortable, which I feel like is a big one for me, helping these people be able to go to a place after work, or if they're retired and they spend a lot of time in their home, they can spend time in a place where they're warm and they're safe and they're comfortable and they don't have to worry about their utility bill as much because of the energy savings that they'll see from all these projects.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Rainey said, just to make customers more comfortable in their home. I hope it's okay if I give kind of a generic specific example of this, but just thinking of a customer that we helped out where she had a broken window, I believe from mowing the yard or something like that, and was just curious about what she could do to get it replaced. And we went out and looked and we're like, ma'am, all of your windows are eligible for replacement. And then we went over the income qualified program with her and we were able to help her get all new windows for her entire home, not just the broken one, for just a couple $100 out of pocket.
Wow.
And she was so thankful. And on top of that, she lives in an area that has grown immensely, and just the reduction in the road noise from the new windows has made a gigantic difference in her life, And so just to be able to help people like that wouldn't have been able to replace just one window, but all of them. It's life-changing for these people, and it's life-changing for us to be able to serve our community like this.
Logan, what does it mean to you, and maybe, how's it been to be able to serve and help out some people that you've gotten to meet through this job?
It's been pretty awesome. I gotta agree, being able to give back to the community in this way. We've had, the past couple weeks, there's been some good examples. A couple homes we did inspections on, and a couple senior gals that were almost in tears when we were leaving, just for how much more comfortable their home was, and they weren't having to haul in wood and, things like that, where we had done insulation, HVAC. One of them was insulation, HVAC, and windows, and she was just over the top thankful that we were able to do that for her, and it made a huge difference for her. Another one was HVAC and insulation, and she teared up before I left just after we did the inspections, and she was just kind of giddy at being able to be more comfortable and not have to put out that effort, because as you get older, it's a lot harder to haul in that firewood and things like that. And I had another example of a gal that we got approved for the income qualified program who's been going through cancer treatment and only had zonal heating, baseboard heaters in her house, and really couldn't afford to heat it for her and her daughter, and we got her approved, and she's getting bids for a ductless heat pump, which she wouldn't have been able to afford without this program. So it's just really awesome to see the life-changing aspects for some of these people that really need it in their life.
That's awesome. It's really cool. And Jalen, what does it mean to you to be able to have a job where you get to serve and help out your community this way?
It's really, really cool. I think this is the first job that I've had that directly impacts the community this much. So it's been really awesome and really eye-opening. I think kind of similar, of course, to what everyone has said. Being able to help people that wouldn't otherwise be able to do this is the greatest thing. To know that this department is the reason that someone could do this, it's really cool. What speaks to me personally, typically when we think of these programs, we do think of maybe seniors that need help paying for a new ductless heat pump or something. But for me, I have a young child. I think of the middle-aged people that have a family and they have young kids and they can't afford to get a new heat pump or insulation in their home, and they might qualify for one of these programs. And you think about these, say a multi-level home, no insulation, no air conditioning, and all the bedrooms are upstairs. The little kids' bedrooms are upstairs. The summers that we've been having, it's oftentimes warmer up there than it is outside, almost to an unhealthy level. So to be able to help those people, the middle-class people also, that are really struggling right now, it's been really, really impactful.
Jalen just made me think about it. For customers that are not necessarily income qualified, but don't have $10,000, $12,000 to drop on a heat pump, but it's something that they need in their home, we do have a loan program that's available. There's a couple requirements. You have to be eligible for an incentive, which will help you determine if you're eligible. Your payment history with us, we don't check credit. Your payment history with the utility, you can only have one missed payment in the last 12 months, and you have to be the owner of the home. And if you meet all three of those things, you're eligible for a loan. We will loan up to $7,500 for you to be able to install any energy efficient project, whether that's insulation, windows, heat pump, and then it's just a part of your monthly utility bill. The longest term that you can do is 5 years on the loan for up to $7,500, and it's about like $150 a month. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it's about $150 a month at 5% for the total.
So again, just so many options for people to, again, we're trying to be able to help the most amount of people, and so we have so many different ways to do that. And I think there are a couple main things that I would love for people to get out of listening to this is that we have so many different ways to help so many different people. If you have a house, if you use electricity, there's probably a way that we can help you out here at the PUD.
Yeah.
But also, Public Power Week really gives me a time to highlight what PUDs are all about in general, and this department is a microcosm of the rest of the PUD as a whole. We exist to serve our community and bring power at the lowest cost possible, but that's not where it ends. We have so many different programs like this that can help people out. Go to our website, go to our social media, give us a call. We're here to be there to serve. And yeah, some of the stories that I hear you guys talk about and that you've brought up today just make me, again, so proud to work for not only a PUD, but this PUD specifically. Thank you guys so much for coming on and chatting about it, and I really appreciate it. And can you give the phone number for people to call if they want it? I probably should have started with that too, but hopefully somebody's still listening. And what's the best way to contact you guys?
360 345-1493 is the line directly to our department.
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of us to get an audit done or just have questions in general, you can submit an online contact form through our website, through the Energy Services tab. You can send us an email at energyservices@lcpud.org, or you can give us a call at 360-345-1493. Leave us a message. We're not always in the office. Sometimes we're out in the field doing audits or inspections, so we will get back to you as soon as we can because we just love to help our community out.
Thank you again so much, Jalen, Rainey, Kinsey, Logan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.